Good evening. Tonight we take a look at what's fast becoming one of the West Country's most intriguing mysteries. It's all about circles, rings of flattened crops that are appearing in West Country fields at the rate of 20 a week. Nobody knows what's causing them, even the scientists are baffled, and it's given rise to several fascinating theories. Are they the result of freak weather conditions or some strange magnetic force? Some people reckon they're the marks left by visiting alien spaceships, whilst others believe it's one of the century's most elaborate hoaxes. Well, we want you to be the judge. Scientist and broadcaster Professor Heinz Wolf joins me in the studio tonight to help analyse the evidence, and we'll put before you the facts and most popular theories. See what you make of these secret circles. First, the essential details.
They've been recorded across England, from Stockton in the north to Findon, West Sussex in the south. But it's in the west that most have been found. Dozens have been reported in what's called the Wessex Triangle, bounded by Marlborough, Warminster and Winchester. The strange thing is, a few have been seen in other countries, but there are more here than anywhere else on Earth. From the air they make an intriguing sight, often appearing in clusters, frequently but not always near the parallel marks left by tractors. One of the earliest reported sightings was in 1946. A decade ago there were 10. Now they're appearing in the West Country almost every day. The circles themselves are up to 60 feet in diameter, and the corn appears to have been twisted in one direction, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Their edges are a puzzle too. They're remarkably sharp, with the unaffected crop still standing bolt upright. And now, unique to the West Country, they're coming in bizarre formations. This, near the ancient village of Avebury in Wiltshire, is typical. There are 4 small satellite circles with a large ring in the middle. People who've been researching what's going on say the crops, usually cereals, are undamaged and apparently growing normally. There are no signs of human entry. What force is at work here, powerful enough to stamp down corn in such a precise pattern and leave no trace?
OK, let's set about finding the answer. We're going to present the evidence in a series of reports which Professor Wolf will be watching carefully. Professor, it's intriguing, isn't it, that even you boffins can't sort it out?
Well, if he knew everything and understood everything, there wouldn't be any need for boffins. But I hope this boffin, elderly as he is, won't have lost his ability to marvel and to wonder and to be amazed. And perhaps my total immersion in the space program at the moment may be useful.
Right, we'll see. Of course, one of the most popular theories is that the whole thing is a magnificent hoax. Well, to see whether it really is possible to flatten corn into such neat circles in the middle of a field, we enlisted the help of some enterprising Army cadets from Bristol University, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Richard Scaife.
Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon we have a small task to try and attempt to recreate one of these circles in a hayfield, in a cornfield which we'll go to either substantiate, disprove, or leave as unproven, in other words, up in the air, this question of whether these are a hoax or not.
So, will they be able to do it? We'll catch up with them later to see how they get on. But now to our first report. The Circles Phenomenon Research Group have been investigating the problem for several years. This summer, they staked out a field near the Wiltshire-Hampshire border with the aim of seeing a circle form in front of their very eyes. Gerald Haycock reports.
They codenamed it Operation White Crow. Every metre of some farmland called the Punch Bowl at Cheesefoot Head in Hampshire was to be placed under intensive surveillance, day and night, for a whole week. The vigil was organised by the Circle Phenomenon Research Group. They chose this area because for 10 of the past 12 years, the mysterious circles had suddenly appeared.
Having said that, we haven't actually seen one of these this year, although we have now 91 formations in Wiltshire and this county of varying types.
The group claimed this was the most intensive and scientific study of the phenomenon mounted anywhere in the world. So they brought in the most advanced technology available to them.
Right, okay, how's that?
They were certain that if anything appeared, they'd see and record it, whatever caused it.
The purpose of this project is to try and get a circle appearing, to catch it without human beings around. And if so, then at least one circle is due to things other than hawks.
Within minutes of their arrival, it seemed they'd chosen exactly the right spot. Just a few hundred yards away, an area of circular disturbance was suddenly noticed.
Yes, it is wind damage. Yeah, okay. Wind damage. That's good. Or it could be animals, could it? Yeah, that's no problem.
This circle was here before Operation White Crows started. As with the other 500 logged so far, the team measured it carefully. Then they examined it for evidence of radiation.
Absolutely normal in every way. Half a count per second.
No reaction from modern technology then, but surprising results from traditional methods. Normally, dowsing is used to detect water underground. In the circles, even in the hands of first-time dowsers, the result was mysterious.
Oh, that's ridiculous. This is definitely not little green men from Mars. We are, though, looking at an extraordinary phenomenon. This is well beyond the comprehension of experts in many fields at the moment. You know, here this afternoon we have some of the leading experts, leading scientists in the country. They have very, very little idea of what's going on here. This is likely to break into totally new science.
Despite the non-stop watch, the experiment ended in failure. The team had to pack up and leave unsatisfied. What they didn't know was that just 600 yards from where they'd been watching, further circles had just formed. Just weeks after Operation White Crow ended in disappointment, circle spotters discovered the most startling example in what was becoming a puzzling summer. Beneath the White Horse at Marlborough, a formation of 8 circles appeared, 6 of them forming what looked remarkably like a great crucifix. On the ground, Colin Andrews and his team measured, finally calculating that the crucifix was just 1 degree out of true.
Okay, that's fine. That's 7.71 at 45 degrees. We haven't had it before. It's very spectacular. It's very large. It's one of the largest formations we've seen. And as I say, it has all of the hallmarks of the genuine phenomenon.
Colin Andrews is chief electrical engineer working for a local authority in Hampshire. For more than a decade, he and fellow circle enthusiasts have spent thousands of pounds locating, photographing and compiling information about the circles. At home, his office is evidence of his fascination with the circles, which he happily admits have taken over much of his life. As well as research, he's the co-author of a book on the subject, which is published this summer. He's convinced that the circles are not forming at random, that they've been too precise for that. Until now, he's been reluctant to say in public what he thinks does cause them. However, when pressed, he admitted he had 2 theories: interference in the Earth's magnetic forces by modern-day satellites, or secondly, interference from an unknown outside intelligence.
I think we are looking at a new form of energy. The vortex itself, I believe, is created by a new kind of energy, probably related to magnetism. I think the magnetic field of the planet may well be being manipulated in an intelligent fashion. and the evidence is beginning to support the theory that there is an intelligent, a thinking behind this.
Mr. Andrews claims to have been consulted by the government and the royal family about the circles. He says the circle phenomenon is building to a climax. Now he wants government money to fund further investigation.
Well, Professor, whatever or whoever might be behind this, first of all, do you think it's credible that it is some sort of magnetic force?
Quite incredible, I'm afraid. The blades of wheat or the blades of grass would have to be made of iron for magnetic fields to have any immediate effect on them, and clearly they aren't. So that isn't the explanation.
Presumably, whatever it is, it's creating a massive force down on the corn, isn't it?
If it indeed happens overnight, or in quite a short time, then quite a large force would be required. So it's either that, or it happens rather more slowly. And if it happens slowly, the sense of uprightness, which all plants have in them, would, I think, tend to counteract this. So we have to accept that it happens quite quickly.
It seems strange, too, that it has these very clean edges, doesn't it?
I must admit, I find this a bit baffling, too, because it isn't terribly likely that any sort of force would have such clean edges.
Now, what do you make of this dowsing effect?
Well, dowsing, I think, is an odd phenomenon. It's something which almost everybody can do. I often do it as a party trick, and so can anybody else. 2 clothes hangers, straightened out, bent into right angles, put in your hands, and you walk around your living room, and lo and behold, they cross, or you walk around your garden. And your aunt can do it, and your children can do it.
So you think the circle's having nothing to do with that?
With the dowsing, nothing whatsoever.
Now, although he's an engineer, Colin Andrews there is tending to favour some sort of outside intelligent force. Do you think that's credible?
Well, I mean, it is barely credible. I said I was prepared to be amazed. However, being a scientist, and even an elderly scientist, as I said early on, I would go first for those things which I could explain using the laws of nature, and only at the very last resort grasp at the supernatural or the outside intelligence.
All right, well, let's take this idea of some unknown outside force a little further. Some people think it's the military. Others say the circles are made by some unidentified flying object from outside our world.
Since man conquered space travel, it seemed less and less fantastic that other beings may have been doing it too. Over the decades, there have been countless UFO claims. Strange lights in the sky, powerful force fields, even spaceships themselves. It's not surprising then that some think the circles are caused by the classic circular motion of flying saucers. The aliens may have materialized in sleek craft at the speed of light, but it was in his three-wheeler that ufologist Ken Rogers came to Wiltshire last week on his favourite holiday. A few days UFO spotting in the Wessex Triangle. He's been convinced since he was 16 that intelligent beings from another world started human life on Earth, and they now return to monitor our progress. He's president of a UFO group called the Unexplained Society. But he has an explanation for the circles, that they're the marks left by alien spaceships.
What you'd first see is a strange glow up in the sky. It would then come down, you may hear a strange sort of buzzing sound or high-pitched whine. Then it would hover and then gradually sort of, if you can imagine it, materialize into a saucer-shaped object, and then gradually come down, hover, then probes would come out of the sides and probe into the crop.
Very few UFO sightings have actually shown a convincing link with the circles, but a Wiltshire couple reports seeing lights and feeling a strange force field when they walked into a circle near Silbury Hill.
Basically, we had a very powerful experience whereby we found the place where this UFO or spaceship landed, and there was a strong energy there, which we could definitely feel. And when I was looking at Hannah, the whole sky went pitch black, which was, before that, a fiery sunset, and she became shining white light.
I also saw the horizon, which was a beautiful sunset, turn pitch black, and Richard embodied in silver light. Also, I had a lot of heat going through my body, and through my arms, and it was just an incredible experience.
The skeptics say even if UFOs do exist, why would they leave such obvious marks in the Wiltshire corn?
There's two schools of thought here. Either they left the calling cards, letting us know that they've been here, that they are watching us. Secondly, they probably are landing in other areas as well, and it's only we actually see them when they land in the fully grown crop fields.
Even the UFO believers are divided. Some groups say there isn't any real evidence to link them with the circles. Many of the circles have been found on or near Salisbury Plain, the site of one of the Army's busiest training areas. The Ministry of Defence admits to having damaged crops with vehicles and even helicopter rotor blades in the past. But they point out when they leave their mark, it's not in neat circles. Circles have even cropped up on Army land. Today, their range control officer is visiting a tenant farm on the edge of the Imber Ranges.
Hello, Bernard.
Hello, Major.
We've got some more circles out here.
Yes.
Hello, Major.
Yes.
2 years running, Bernard Elliott and his wife have woken up one morning to find their barley has been flattened.
Same as they were last year.
That's right.
This year, it's been one large circle and 4 satellites.
So not spiky like it is now.
No,
It's obviously
no,
grown up then
that's
since
right,
then.
that's it, yes.
Right.
What's the military doing in this area?
As you know,
might
Bert,
cause something like this.
well, we behave ourselves on your land, or we do our best to. I can't think of any military activity, and I've checked the range calendars, that could have caused this, either ground troops or vehicles or aircraft. I mean, it's really just a puzzle.
If it isn't the Army, Mr. Elliott reckons it's either a hoax or an alien visitor.
That space up there is that large, and if it's as big as people tell us it is, well, we can't be that naive to think that we're the only people in this universe.
The Army has taken the problem so seriously, they've even used vehicles and helicopters to conduct their own experiments to confirm they're not responsible. But with the experimental airbase at nearby Boscombe Down, couldn't the circles be caused by secret radar or communication trials?
I've been through the whole list of exercises and trials, and there's nothing that would possibly produce the sort of effect that we've seen today.
But they wouldn't tell you about it anyway, would they?
But I know before they come on here, they have to actually tell me what they're going to do. And I'm always at liberty to go and inspect and see what they're doing. And I've seen, or I'm aware, that the sort of equipment that have been trialled here would not produce that phenomenon.
Even if the military is behind it, it seems highly unlikely they'd have kept it hidden for so long, even if they needed to. As for alien visitors, it still remains strange that no one's ever seen a spaceship making such obvious marks in our crops.
Of course, some say we should look closer to home, where the answer may be all around us. We know the weather is incredibly powerful. Could the circles have a thoroughly natural explanation? Here's a report from David Garmston.
The world's weather has fascinated and confounded man since time began. Although its mechanisms are now largely understood, it remains an untamed and sometimes mysterious force of immense power. Great wind movements like hurricanes can now be observed by satellite and their course predicted. But now there's talk of something new in the skies, an invisible atmospheric force which leaves not destruction in its wake, but beautifully formed circles. It's the theory of Dr. Terence Meaden, an independent meteorologist who's prepared to battle with the scientific establishment to get his radical new ideas accepted. He's the director of the Tornado and Storm Research Organisation based at Bradford-on-Avon in Wiltshire. He's been an advisor to the CEGB on the effects of tornadoes on nuclear installations. And he's convinced that it's a cousin of the tornado which is descending over southern England and causing the circles. But unlike this tornado, the mass of wind is stationary and electrically charged. Dr. Meaden maintains that the circles are created by a spinning ball of air sparking with electricity. It descends, pushing the corn down and leaving a spiralling pattern in its wake. Then it recedes or simply disappears into nothing. If he's right, he's discovered a new meteorological phenomenon which challenges preconceptions about the world around us.
I see a way in which it's possible that vortices can be formed in the atmosphere by natural means. You can call that weather if you like. It is something natural in the atmosphere, I do believe.
Dr. Meaden accounts for the number of circles in the West Country by the fact that we're looking harder for them. He also believes that the lie of the land creates favourable conditions for the vortices to be formed in the atmosphere. And he's worked out what it may be like to witness a circle forming.
There would have been a tremendous rush of air at the stage, spiralling around, out from a centre there, and accompanied, I believe, with a humming noise, and if it happened by night, possibly accompanied by a light as well. But then we cannot tell whether this formed by day or by night.
Pretty terrifying, actually, if you happened to be around at the time. What would have happened if you had
Probably
been
enough to knock you over.
Dr. Meaden says it's a complex electrical effect from that wind which creates the smaller satellite rings. His theory is closely argued and has won the cautious backing of a few scientists, although most weather experts remain sceptical. Dr. Meaden says his research will be completed in 2 years. At the moment, it's the only scientific theory available.
Well, his theory is quite appealing, isn't it, Professor?
Well, it appeals to the scientist in me. And I could imagine that there is something rather like micro-weather. And I could even imagine the lack of sympathy of meteorologists who really deal with macro-weather. And therefore, they haven't perhaps examined the very tiny things. And there are effects with very sharp edges, like ball lightning. I could imagine that ball lightning, which has got dimensions which are really sort of sitting room sized, that there are other effects which are perhaps allied with it, which could make these circles.
It does seem strange that we haven't recorded this before.
Well, we don't know. I mean, it could either be so usual in agricultural terms that before we had aeroplanes and therefore had an easy way of looking for them, people just accepted them, or perhaps that the trigger for them is something which we've only been doing for the last 40, 50 years. And I can think of a few things. High-power television stations, for instance, pour energy into the atmosphere. Aeroplanes pour enormous quantities of energy into the atmosphere. And it could be that something which does that doesn't actually produce the effect on the ground, but maybe the triggering effect which causes these micro-weather, micro-tornadoes to actually start.
So do you think it could be some military activity?
Well, if it was, and if it was a purposeful one, rather than a fallout or some, I would have thought to have kept it secret for so long, when even the merest government paper or the Zircon satellites and so on leak out very quickly. So purely from the, sort of the leakiness of the security situation, I think it's unlikely.
And what do you think about the UFO theory? Do you think it's visiting spaceships?
Frankly, no. I'd love there to be visiting aliens and little green men, but the chances of them being so unextrovert, if they really wanted to find out about us, why land in remote cornfields and not in Trafalgar Square? If they really wanted to communicate with us, there would be much better ways of doing so. So they're either being extraordinarily ham-fisted aliens, or really not very likely.
All right. Well, let's look at our final report now. You remember we brought in the army to see if they could carry off a convincing hoax. Let's rejoin the cadets of the Officer Training Corps as they set to work. The girls' team opted for the simplest method they could think of. They joined arms and they marched. The boys opted for the best technology available, a stake and a rope. The girls' brute force is beginning to pay off. Already the corn's looking decidedly flat.
It was fairly easy. It's very easy to get the actual circumference, and then it's gone down very well. It's just like went down straight away as soon as you walk on it.
And sure enough, just 10 minutes after starting, a circle's beginning to emerge. Tim and Rob, though, are finding the going tougher.
We also tried a helicopter to see if the downdraft from the rotors could make a circle without all that hard work. It fails to make even a small impression. Meanwhile, the girls' team has finished and they're ready to go on and do more.
I think they're really quick to make. We could make another couple of dozen this afternoon if we really try.
The boys are getting there too, but they don't quite share the enthusiasm for the work.
They're getting better now. As you can see at the start, it was a little bit ragged.
Certainly when you get the hang of what you've got to do and the technique of it, it certainly comes a lot quicker.
And the CO's impressed too.
I really think it's possible that you can do it, somebody could be doing it like this. If it is somebody, Hoaxie, I think it's a marvellous practical joke. I really do.
But who on earth would want to?
Well, fortunately, our very helpful farmer didn't mind a little flattened corn for our experiment. But actually, that's very convincing, isn't it?
Quite shockingly convincing. I'm really shaken to the core. And if it is practical jokers, I take my hat off to them, literally, because to have kept it up for half a century and never let on seems quite amazing.
Yes, who do you think might have been doing it, and why would they?
Well, I suppose one could imagine the secret society of circle makers who get their kicks out of rubbing their hands in secret and fooling everybody almost all the time.
Well, you joke, but actually you're listed in Who's Who as being a very keen practical joker, aren't you, Professor? Is it you behind all this?
Well, I wonder. But to be more serious, if I'm ever become really rich, which seems pretty unlikely, I would like to start a foundation for the perpetration of really big practical jokes, to which you make grant applications and which meets in secrets, and which then supports things of this kind.
And the circles would certainly fit in that, would it?
Yes, but not guilty on this occasion.
Okay. Well, let me twist your arm then. What do you plump for?
I think, in spite of so convincing, I would still plump for meteorology, weather, some kind of little whirlwind with rather sharp edges, perhaps accompanied by electrical phenomena, which descends from the skies.
Despite the fact that no one's ever seen anything like this actually happening?
Yes, but whether actually clear air turbulence is invisible. There are invisible weather phenomena. And I think there may well be a relationship between ball lightning, which is also a very sharply delimited meteorological effect, and this sort of effect.
Do you think we should do some proper scientific research to lay this ghost once and for all?
Yes, I think one should certainly have some automated observation posts, which needn't be very expensive, on top of a telegraph pole, and have lots and lots and lots of those to see whether one can't actually see a circle being created.
Professor, thanks very much. Well, what do you think? The military, alien spaceships, some unidentified natural phenomenon, or just one of the most engaging practical jokes of the last few decades? From West on 2, good night.